Let's begin with Massimo Scolari. Massimo Scolari, born, as you can see, March 31st, is an Italian architect, painter, and designer. Scolari graduated in architecture in Milan in 1969. In 1973, he became a professor of history of architecture at Palermo and of drawing at the Istituto Universitario di Architettura, the University of Architecture in Venice, the only architecture university in Italy, the one in Venice, with that beautiful entrance gates designed by Carlo Scarpa. Between 1975 and 1993, he was visiting professor at various universities, including Cornell University, Cooper Union in New York City, the Institute for Architecture and Urban Studies in New York, Technische Universität in Vienna, Harvard University, and University of Cambridge. From 2006, he was a Davenport visiting professor at the Yale School of Architecture. He's the editor of Controspazio, Casabella, Lotus International, and is director of AIDOS, 1989-1995, and a series of architectural books by Franco Angeli. From 1989, he designed furniture for Italian design company Giorgetti, where he was also the art director until 2001. Scolari is known for his drawings, which, according to a review of his 1980 exhibition in New York City, takes the form of a critique of architecture, which calls to mind the surrealism of Salvador Dali and Yves Tanguy. Pyramids and ziggurats, dams and forts, axonometric forms are used to create a new architectural, surprise, surprise, e-logic. Not logic, but e-logic, and I personally think we need more of it. He has held exhibitions in Europe, Japan, Russia, and the United States. His works are in the permanent collections at the Museum of Modern Art in New York, the German Architecture Museum in Frankfurt, and Centre Georges Pompidou in Paris. This is the man. He's 80 years old today. Happy birthday to you, sir. Today I tried to send him a message on his website, but for some reason it was not delivered. I kept pushing on the button send, and it was not sent. Anyway, I'm making a presentation about some of his works. Massimo Scolari. Another picture of him. I only found these two pictures. I mean, there are others, but anyway, some drawings. In fact, I show mainly drawings with only one exception. Well, two exceptions. The second one being a large model. His drawings are indeed those that made a name for him. The drawings of Massimo Scolari, drawings which the so-called pragmatic schools of architecture would hate because they are indeed unengaged with reality. They are dreamlike. They are idealistic. They are meditations, perhaps on life and the afterlife. That is life and death. They are about memory. They are about dreaming, and we don't dream any longer, or very few of us. This is a book published by Schira, The Representation of Architecture, Massimo Scolari. We see in the sky his trademark wings. I think his drawings can be called visionary. They're architectural dreams. And, you know, living in a highly mercantile time, you know, dreams are discouraged. But I read today, preparing this presentation, that there was a symposium at Yale University, in fact, by the way of an exhibition with the drawings of Massimo Scolari, with a question, are we still dreaming? Or are dreams still possible? And the conclusion of the symposium was that yes, through drawings we can dream, and that dreams are still possible. But this is not the case everywhere and every time. Anyway, I think if Le Corbusier was right when he said that architecture is not a profession, but a state of mind, then you can serve the spirit of architecture through drawings. You allow your imagination to assert itself as honestly and as skillfully as possible, and you are serving architecture. You work for architecture. You are an architect. You are not an architect if you don't express in any way what you feel, think about architecture. Some people build, many build, some do not. But even through drawings, I think the spirit of architecture can endure. And it happened in the past. There are architects who position themselves in the history of architecture even without building a lot. Antonio Sant'Elia. I mean, how many buildings by Boulez do we know of? But his drawings are important presences in the history of architecture. There are also architects who built a lot, like Frank Lloyd Wright or Le Corbusier, but they also drew a lot. They also imagined a lot of just imagined architecture. Some good, some maybe less good, but they couldn't renounce to the temptation to do architecture. Without clients, nobody can stop you from doing projects. So Frank Lloyd Wright did Broadacre City, working for almost 10 years when he had fewer commissions at the time. And Le Corbusier worked for Ville Radieuse, also for about 10 years. So again, if you love architecture, if you are born to be an architect, if you are in good health, you don't even have to be rich. You just need a pencil and some paper or a mouse and a laptop, and you can do architecture. Scolari has his, means, representational means, but you see, this is a watercolor on paper from 1972. The Misleading Muses. Well, not too many architects would employ such words. The Misleading Muses. At Cooper Union in New York, at least when John Haydock was a dean, such a title would have been very possible. But Cooper Union was a very special school. This is a drawing done together with Leon Krier, and it's called, and I had it and I lost it in the final presentation. Anyway, Leon Krier and Massimo Scolari worked on this watercolor, this drawing, and it has something to do with Janus, the god of beginnings, the god that gave name to the first month of the year, January. I don't know, it was called the disappointment of Janus or something like this. But an interesting idea to have two architects working on the same artwork or drawing. Leon Krier and Massimo Scolari. Now, are these feasible architectures? Not necessarily, but they visualize the dream of architecture. They make you think. Now, look at this title. Oblique Drawing, a history of anti-perspective. I like very much. I'm also an adversary of perspectival drawing, because I think perspectival drawing in its, post-Renaissance version is misleading in the sense that it's too ambitious. It wants to convey a so-called objective representation of reality. But reality is never just objective. So there are also subjective elements, like, for example, in the Middle Ages, you know, the perspective was done, okay, it was excessively subjective. For example, if the painter or the draftsperson didn't like his neighbor and his neighbor was right near him, he would depict him very small. And if the painter or the draftsperson loved a young lady who was very far away, she was drawn very big. So, you know, it's about a mental perspective, an emotional perspective. So Massimo Scolari, I don't know exactly. I didn't see this book. I didn't read this book, but I like its title, Oblique Drawing, A History of Anti-Perspective. I think we overestimate perspective. That is, we overestimate control through reason, through objectivity of the seen reality. In essence, it's a method of controlling. You control through, you know, the mechanism, the invention of perspective, perspectival drawing. You control a certain view of an entity which is almost object-like, separated from the subject, that is, from you. But it's exactly this aspect of excessive control, objectivist control, which I think is bothering. Anyway, now something he built. He didn't build all those buildings. It's probably in Venice here, but the wings belong to him. And you know, these wings, sculptural as they are, I think they evoke very well his vision. You know, these wings are maybe Icarus wings. You know, they are the wings of you know, melting down, the wings of falling back to the earth, the wings of you know, impossibility in a way. But on the other hand, they are the wings of desire. And I think desire is immensely important. And in the absence of desire, you cannot do a good architecture. Kopp Himmelblau and Wolf Prix, they approximated a little bit in a different way this desire for the blue skies and the desire for flying and the desire to escape gravity in several of their works, if not all of them, but in one explicitly, a museum of art that they built in Ohio, of all places, in the United States. I like this picture very much because these are the wings of longing, of desire, of aspiring, of aspiration. You aspire towards something. Massimo Scolari. Some of the drawings, some of the artworks he made are you know, closer to painting, to drawing than to architecture. But architecture is still present, like in this image that he created. This one is on the cover of a good L'Architecture d'aujourd'hui, which I have. It's a good drawing by Massimo Scolari, and it made it on the cover of that issue of L'Architecture d'aujourd'hui, published, I don't know, at the end of 60s or early 70s. Massimo Scolari. It's a dream world, yes. But nothing wrong with dreams. We need them. Otherwise, life could be quite tedious. We saw this one already. You will see a model of this building here. He built it. I hope I have it in this presentation. But I wonder what was in his mind when he made this drawing. One thing is for sure, for Massimo Scolari, like for other architects, architecture, the one they aspire towards is poetry. Poetry, you know, externalized through visual means. It has to be poetry. Now, the pragmatician, the mercantile one, would probably protest, would say this is not architecture. But in the absence of this architecture that Massimo Scolari drew and draws, what do we have? Because life is not just praxis. A strange being here. I made me even wonder if indeed is by Massimo Scolari, but I took it from a website with his works, and this one from the same one. He drew incessantly. In fact, on his website you can see many other drawings that I don't show here. Are all of these oblique drawings? Maybe to an extent. But obliqueness, like the diagonal, express you know, opposition, express otherness. And I think we need otherness. That is, we need art. It is the role of art to be other. And this is the model of that drawing that we saw earlier, quite a big one. Massimo Scolari. Here is again another drawing. It seems, you know, this obsessed him. It's probably the biblical ark. So the paintings, here is someone who wrote, I think, in a sensitive way about Massimo Scolari. And unfortunately, there is something here that blocks me. It exasperates me. So I cannot read the second line, but I can read the others. The paintings and drawings and maquettes, the models by Massimo Scolari evoke an archaic, dreamlike. Now you have to read because I can't, something is blocking my text here. Desolate scenes depict views long into the distant nothingness. They speak about Scolari's detached sense of creative freedom and his ability to feel comfortable in that mode of thought. The wings, which appear to resemble that of a phoenix, may provide that signal to a flight of fantasy or dream. Ruinous buildings and monoliths are scattered through the scenes, at times bombarding or providing strong visual obstacles. This is probably translated from another language. The English is not perfect, but anyway, these images recall a time before ours. Perhaps where the fortification, for example, where is not written like this, perhaps where the fortification enabled a secret world to exist in each place without distraction or having succumbed to a stronger enemy. In this sense, Scolari will always sit on the outside, without defeat by the forces of the outside. Simon Leonardi. Anyway, I don't know who he is. And a few other drawings by Scolari before we talk a little bit about Zaha Hadid, because she died on this day, the 31st of March in 2016. That is 7 years ago. Herself, a case of obliqueness. Before she became seduced by fluidity, by total fluidity or fluid totality, to use the two titles of the two books published with the works of her students at the Institute of Architecture in Vienna, or in Vienna. But we are still with Massimo Scolari. And I think this is the last image of this short presentation about him. The wings still fighting for the distant horizon, still longing for what is far away.